Well, hello, friendos. My name is Chase McPherson. Um, if you're watching this, you might have seen my Blue Sky tweet. You might have seen me on a Discord channel talking about the fact that this is 2 years since I self-published, a little novel series of mine called Bloodbound. You'll see the covers of all five of those novels in the corner of this little play window here. I'm basically going to spend a few hours reading to you, if that's okay. I'm going to read a little bit from each of the five novels. There's also some audiobook snippets that my friend Gav VA produced for me. We have a couple of announcements as well. So let me start by telling you a little bit about this story. Um, It goes back a little further than 2 years. It goes almost 13 years ago. I started this story as a series of novellas. One was called Bloodbound, one was called Bloodborne. Um, I designed the main characters kind of in the image of myself and my then partner, now husband, Tyler. Um, I put several aspects of our real lives into those characters, even some things we have said to each other during our courtship and our first years as a couple. Um, you have to remember around that time, 2010-ish was the height of the True Blood craze uh, and the Twilight series. So vampires were all the rage at that point, and even though True Blood had some LGBTQ representation. By the way, happy Pride, everybody. And happy Father's Day if you celebrate. I personally don't, but that's by the by. LGBTQ representation in True Blood was there, but it kind of wasn't. And I looked at the Twilight books, and Twilight is Twilight. So I didn't see anything that really spoke to me as a gay man at that point. So I decided I would kind of just do that myself. Um, and I put the two novellas together into what I called a deluxe edition. It was just novel length. And then a few months later, I published another novel called Mind's Eye. And then about 6 months after that, a third one, which explained the backstory of uh, Hunter's partner. Uh, and I kind of hit a brick wall after that, and so I let the idea kind of fizzle out. And 2 years ago, I decided I was going to reboot this series. You know, everything's being rebooted nowadays, and I really put my nose to the grindstone and really push to go past this three novel block that I seem to find myself in. I tried another series um, in 2016 when I was living in uh, the Austin area. It's yeah, three novels, and I just kind of hit a wall. So I tried refashioning some aspects of the Bloodbound series, and whatever I changed really seemed to click. And some of what you'll see in the books um, is more topical in terms of mental health um, and polyamory, two things that have I don't know how to finish that sentence. It's part of my life. I am polyamorous. I don't have an additional partner besides my husband, but we know where we stand in our relationship, and he uh, just recently came out as pansexual. So I'm weaving aspects of that into this story. And the mental health aspect is also really important to me. He and I have both struggled with mental health and depression um, over the course of our relationship. And I think this novel series is a good way to start some discussions about mental health, depression, processing trauma. Um, and later this year, I will have published the fifth book in the series, which I happen to conveniently have a cover of here. It's called Reverberations. That comes out September 2nd. But if you are interested in this series and want to get the whole thing in one lump, you could go to my Ko-Fi page uh, where I have the pentology. And the pentology is all five novels, one EPUB file, and that's available on, like I said, my Ko-Fi page. And if you are interested in that or any of the novels right now, you could go to my website by chasemcp.com. And there I've got links to all the books, little synopses, and links to where you can find both ebook and print volumes all together. Another thing you could do, if you're new to the series altogether, you could get the first volume absolutely free. And how that works is it's Pride Month, it's the anniversary month of the show, of the books. So I decided I would make it free. Go to any of your favorite e-retailers, Barnes& and Noble, Books A Million, what have you. The ebook edition of Reawakening is absolutely free through the end of this month. Due to Amazon's issues with handing things out for free, you'll find it at a discounted rate, which I think is 99 cents through the end of the month. If you're a Kindle person, I totally understand it. I own a Kindle myself. All of my books, my ebooks are Kindles. So 99 cents on Kindle, free everywhere else, all up to you. So, what I'm going to be doing today is I'm going to be reading the first chapter from all five of the novels, interspersed with a little bit of etc. information. I'll for the first two books, I'll also include snippets from the audiobook version so you can get a handle on Gav VA. That's the name of the voice actor I've hired to do the audiobooks, so you can hear how he presents my stories. We'll also talk about music. Music plays a very important role, I think, in the Bloodbound story. It certainly helps me in the writing process. And then we have a special announcement. Uh, so let's get started with book one, Reawakening. I'm going to hold this as close as I can to the camera so that you can get a look at this fantastic cover art. Kai Starlight is the name of the artist who did the cover work for Bloodbound number one. Now, I've always wanted to do to see this story adapted into comics. I think this is a very visual story. Um, as you'll learn later, if you get into the books, uh, vampires' eye colors change if certain conditions are met. Their emotional state is kind of signified by the color of their eyes. Uh, but I don't have the wherewithal to do artwork myself. Um, I actually have a script for the very first issue created, but that's something that's down the pike. So I'm going to focus now on the text. So this is the first chapter of the first book from Reawakening. This is chapter one, first order of business. From what seemed an ages-long purgatorial dream, his vision, or his lack thereof, seemed to quickly transpose into a frame of blinding white light. He quickly tried to analyze his senses. Was there any sound, any shape, perhaps any smell or taste that could make him discover where he was? Traces of sound, or at least his perception of sound, began to reach his brain. To his left, a repetitive vibration. To the right, the faintest of whistles. He began to feel various aches and strains to his muscles, including a nagging, burning sensation around his middle. He tried to look down to examine his body, but all he saw was the white screen of nothingness. The sounds began to increase in volume. The guttural vibrations on his left had a distinct rhythm, going up slightly in pitch, then down. Still, he couldn't quite place the sound to its proper source. The whistling on his right, however, had transformed into more of a wind. Though he could feel no breeze against his face, he was sure he was hearing a ferocious gale. He licked his lips in an attempt to gauge any tastes to assist him in his quest to determine his environment. There was no earthen sensation to tell him he was indoors or out. There was a faint hint of iron on his taste buds, or something metallic, something almost antique in a way, as if he'd held a copper coin under his tongue momentarily. The vibration to his left deepened and intensified yet again, and he became certain this was the sound of some type of wild animal, perhaps giving a warning growl. Panicked, he whirled to the left, or he thought he had done. There was no physical confirmation he had made any move at all. Only the borderless white vista in front of him, the sounds of a hungry beast to his left, a storm of unknown proportions whirling to his right. Where am I? He strained to remember the last few moments before he apparently lost consciousness, but all he came up with was the realization that he couldn't even remember his name. Who am I? He suddenly felt a short, hot breath against his left ear. It was most certainly an animal now, the pulsating, vibrating noise taking up almost all his attention. He could still hear wind, but still felt no wind. The burning sensation against his waistline grew stronger, radiating up his arms and over his shoulders. He blinked, and for the first time, began to see shadow and the faintest detail of depth. He was indoors. He was laying laying down, face pointed upward. The sound of a door unlatching caused him to gasp, and with the sharp intake of air, the white light gave way to a brief snap of black. Blinking again, color and sharpness readjusted themselves in his vision. He craned his neck to the left. Curled on the pillow next to his was indeed an animal, a cat. A young calico, tufts of gray, brown, white, gold, and black dotted about its body, and an unusually thick and bushy tail. Its olive-colored eyes were staring at him, and it was purring. He understood immediately that this was the noise he was hearing, an intensely sedate house cat. The brief moment of joy in decoding that small mystery was replaced by the reminder that he was in a strange room with a door that had just opened, and now closed shut, which meant someone had to have just opened it and closed it. Who's there?" he asked, his voice raspy and dry. He rubbed his eyes. "Ah, he awakens." The voice was instantly comforting to him, much to his confusion. Though he still couldn't see perfectly, his hearing and smell were working aces. There was a man at the door, taking off what sounded like a thick woolen jacket. The man was also setting aside what sounded like a parcel, or maybe a satchel of gear. It smelled faintly of rain, and it was at this moment a chill met with his skin. He surmised that wherever he was in the middle of a bad snowstorm, now realizing the whistling and howling noise to his right was a hefty wind trying to sneak in between the small gaps of wooden cabin walls. Heavy leather boots met against creaky floorboards as the man approached his bedside, leaned forward, and switched off the white noise machine. "How do you feel?" Head still swimming, senses still fine-tuning, he blinked. Confused. He was not in a cabin after all. The man wasn't wearing a woolen jacket. He had black jeans and a black sweater. There had been no blizzard raging outside. There wasn't any way to tell what kind of weather there actually was. A long picture window opposite the bed was perfectly sealed by a metallic shutter. The man nodded, gently sitting in the corner of the bed. The man was young, with almost boyish features, dark brunette hair, a little ruffled, and soft blue eyes. Do you remember who you are yet? Common sense should have told him this question was not normal, something of a red flag to a normal person undergoing this strange scenario. He could only shake his head. There was a small understanding smile on the man's face. He slowly pointed to his lips and said with an exaggerated whisper, Hunter. Hunter Reeves. There it was, plain as day. How could he forget his own damn name? What was going on? He took in a sharp breath, and as he exhaled, he remembered. Kai? I looked relieved as Hunter said his name. That's right. A cat's paw pressed into Hunter's leg, its claws prickling his skin gently. It caused his muscles to twitch, and a sharp pain from his side made him double over. Startled, the cat dashed away. Oh, careful, Kai said, reaching out for Hunter's shoulder. Hunter was not sure if that gentle scolding was for him or for the cat. What happened? Hunter said. What's going on? A concerned look fell over Kai's face. You were... Someone attacked you. Who? Kai shook his head. That's not important right now, but they hurt you pretty badly. As Kai explained, Hunter looked down and saw that he was bare-chested, except for a large amount of bandaging around his middle. There was more padding around the right side, and there was a dark circle of dried blood. And you're not fully healed yet. You'll need at least one more feeding before the night's over. Still not putting all the pieces together, Hunter looked at Kai with a puzzled look on his face. You were near death, Hunter. Kai looked ashen and pale as he gathered the words. I had to turn you. Turn me? I didn't have a choice. I simply could not bear to watch you die. Please forgive me. The dizziness began to return as Kai's words sank in, and the puzzle pieces began to lock in place. Oh, yeah. There was an awkward silence as the two men looked into each other's eyes. That's it? After a few moments, Kai broke the silence. Oh? Aren't you upset or angry? Sitting upright in bed, Hunter crossed his legs together, clasping the tips of his toes within his hands. He ignored the searing hot sting of atrophied muscles being stretched far beyond their tolerance. How long have I been? About a week. Kai fiddled nervously with his fingers as he spoke. It would have been quicker, but like I said, you were this close from dying. You needed a lot of blood just to get back to... He trailed off before saying the word normal. The cat hopped back on the bed and went directly to Hunter's lap, purring happily. The warmth and comfort spread quickly through his body, and he relaxed back into the pillows. Annabelle's been keeping you company the whole time, Kai grinned softly. She seemed to know when you needed the company. Hunter scratched behind Annabelle's ears, causing her tail to perk in the air. He sighed. So, what happens now? Kai lifted himself up, and he crossed the bedroom to his black backpack. He pulled out a clipboard and a canteen, bringing them both back to the bed. Sitting next to Hunter, he gave him the canteen while he produced a pen from the clipboard. We don't have much choice. We have to get you registered, and then we'll have to move you out of General Agency and into V Division. I can't very well be caught harboring an undocumented vampire in my own ward. Vampire. The word barely made any sense to Hunter. He knew what a vampire was. He'd been around them for so long already, but to actually be one, shouldn't it feel different? Shouldn't he be in mourning for his mortal life? Drink, Kai prodded softly, gesturing to the canteen. It doesn't stay body temperature forever, you know. Hunter unscrewed the top of the bottle and looked inside. It was filled to the top with thick, dark red blood. He felt nauseous just seeing it, but he was also ravenously hungry. He lifted the canteen to his lips and tilted it back. Kai clicked the top of his pen. It is my official duty to welcome you to the V Division of Ward 12, new Agent Hunter. Let's begin your onboarding. So that is Chapter 1 of Book 1, Reawakening. And again, I'd like to remind you, you can get the first volume free, absolutely free, through the end of this month. Just go to your favorite retailer of books, except Amazon. It'll be discounted, won't be totally free, but it will be discounted. So, what to do now? Let me take you over to an audio clip. This is the audiobook version of Reawakening. This is from the audiobook version of Reawakening. You'll This is from another section of the book a little bit further on, and Gavier does. I think he does an awesome job of putting a sense of urgency and danger in this segment. So here's a clip from the audiobook.
There was an explosion of glass as something barreled through, somersaulting expertly across the floor, then hopping to his feet like some super-powered acrobat. Kai! His partner zoomed to the door. He couldn't open it from his end either. Kai looked into the glass at Hunter, then yelled, "Look out!" Hunter instinctively turned around to see Khan nose to nose just as Khan jabbed a large butcher's knife into Hunter's belly. Khan withdrew the knife and tossed it to the floor. He saw stars as his body convulsed. He could hear Kai making an inhuman, high-pitched roar. Hunter sank to his knees in searing pain, putting his right hand against the wound. Khan grabbed his left hand and began to pull him like a rag doll across the floor. Hunter's body turned with his feet pointed back towards the double doors. Hunter watched as Kai began to slam himself against the locked doors. They dented once, twice, 3 times. "You've got no way out," Hunter gasped, fighting through the pain. Khan either didn't hear him or had plunged so far into insanity that he didn't care. He continued to drag Hunter as they passed the elevator shaft. The lights suddenly flickered back to life, catching them both off guard. Khan, disoriented, took a step backwards, letting go of Hunter's arm. Kai succeeded in bashing through the doors, running at a frenetic pace towards Khan. The doctor spun on his heels. In doing so, he slipped on a pool of Hunter's blood that was rapidly spilling on the floor. He fell. Kai tackled him and without so much as missing a beat, gripped Khan's head and snapped it to one side like it was a twig. The body landed lifelessly and slumped against the wall by the stairwell door. "Hunter!" Kai scrambled on his hands and knees to his lover's side. "Oh, you gods." He took his wrist communicator and pressed the button harder than he'd ever pressed it before. "Mugen, V-medic to level 2, V-medic to level 2. He pressed both hands into Hunter's stomach. Blood bubbled through his fingers. Hunter was struggling for breath already. "Kai, phone, he murmured. "Shh. Save your strength, hon," Kai said. Hunter slapped a bloody hand over Kai's as he began to gasp. "Zipper. Phone." Kai, registering what Hunter was trying to say, reached into Hunter's pants pocket. He pulled out the phone. The screen was still on the video recording app, and the word "wreck" was blinking. The battery had 2% left. "Evidence," Hunter panted. "Security office. Tapes. Kai, I'm... No, Hunter, no, you're not," Kai said, letting the phone drop to the floor. "I am not losing you. I can't." Hunter's eyes began to flutter. His breath became shallower. "I can't," Kai repeated. His fangs began to descend. "I must, but God, what if I miss again?" The sound of the order agents beginning to run throughout the hall and past them began to fill Hunter's ears. It was so disorientating. Hunter knew he only had 1 breath left, 2 at most. Staring Kai in the eyes, he took one big gulp of air. I trust you, love, he whispered. Go. Kai dove for Hunter's exposed throat.
So now you have a little bit more context as to how where the story brought us to in the beginning. That's a middle chapter. Um, yeah, I set the book starting with Hunter waking up as a vampire, um, hoping that you would be intrigued to find out why um, why he was made a vampire, because obviously he was just turned into one. I'm going to take you now to Book Two, West of Nowhere. This is an adaptation of what was originally called Mind's Eye in the original trilogy of books. Um, in the this is where I start to diverge a little bit from my original plan for the book. Um, there's how do I put this? Actually, no, I can wait and explain that when I get to the audiobook portion of book two. I'm going to start with reading chapter one of book two. Um, as another reminder, you can get all of the books and learn more about the story at my personal website by chasemcp.com. Um, you'll notice that you can't get the audiobooks just yet. There is a reason for that, and I'll get to that in a little bit. But just know audiobooks for books one and two exist. They're just shifting. They're shifting alliances, I guess we could call. I'll explain more about that after we get into book three. Um, but let me just read the first chapter of uh, book two. Book two is called West of Nowhere. Chapter one is called Normal Life. Hunter Reeves tapped the R key repeatedly on his MacBook Pro, his inability to focus on the job at hand filling him with frustration. It wasn't as if he didn't have anything to write about. An 18-month review narrative detailing his work as a record keeper and a part-time investigator would not result in a blank document by any stretch of the imagination. A year and a half ago, life as Hunter once knew it was swiftly taken away. It was a life that he might have described as mundane, peppered with trauma and tragedy, but mostly routine and dull. That was until one fateful night when he decided to drown his sorrows at a downtown Dallas gay club and stumbled into a world of crime, espionage, and the supernatural. What he had not known on that night was that the club was the setting of a sting operation organized by a group known as the Order, the group Hunter now worked for. The bartender at the club had actually been the lead of an investigation into a strange series of disappearances connected to a bizarre and highly illegal medical experiment to alter human DNA with animal survival characteristics. Cold bloodedness, for example, or reptilian scales, even venomous stingers for attack purposes. Beyond belief as that was, the investigator was something just as unbelievable to a human: a vampire, the undead, Nosferatu. But that reference is unfair. Kai Taylor was as most unlike a Hollywood vampire archetype as Hunter could know. Kai was a figure of scruples, a conscience, a champion of human rights and the good of mankind around the world. That's why he was, at the time, chief interrogator for the Order, leading investigations across the state of Texas. It's why he was tending bar that night, running the investigation Hunter had inadvertently interrupted. Kai, a vampire for about 160 years, had found himself instantly drawn to Hunter, firstly as a prospective agent. Hunter had a keen eye for detail. Or should that be a keen ear? Hunter had overheard the voice of his ex-lover in an alleyway that night at the club, trying to sell information connected to that weird animal DNA project, and Hunter had tried to hear more, damning the consequences. It was Hunter who had figured out how to hack into his ex's heavily safeguarded computer based on his knowledge and previous experience with his former partner. Once Kai and Hunter had learned the missing people were being experimented on at Hunter's former employer, it was Hunter who accepted the mission to infiltrate. And it was Hunter who braved injections and being knocked out at the hands of the mad scientist within the building, only to be brutally stabbed by the doctor with a butcher's knife when the mission began to fall apart. Hunter's human life ended that night. Kai and Hunter had developed such a bond, such a love by that point, that Kai couldn't bear to watch Hunter die. With permission granted in Hunter's dying breaths, Kai began the process of turning him into a vampire. In doing so, Kai had violated a fundamental rule of the Order. Vampire agents were forbidden from turning humans into their own kind without prior permission, even if it was to save the life of a fellow agent, as Hunter had been. Kai was suspended as a result, a trifling matter in his eyes. He spent that time tending to Hunter, training him with his newly installed vampire abilities and teaching him what was and was not true about vampires. Hunter hadn't had much time to harness his abilities and process all this new information. Mere weeks after he was turned, Kai had been abducted, held hostage, and tortured by an insane, much older vampire with a grudge against Kai. With the aid of a fellow vampire and Order agent named Noah, Hunter was able to track Kai and his abductor down to the underground caverns of a mining town in New Mexico. They had been able to rescue Kai and kill the offender. Well, they didn't kill him. Hunter sighed. This was the sticking point. This was where he wasn't sure how to proceed in his report. There were details Kai and Hunter had agreed not to be so open about because there were things they still had to sort out. They just hadn't had time to discuss those matters. For their work in stopping the mad scientist and rescuing the abducted humans, Kai and Hunter had been promoted. Hunter became the Order's chief record keeper, managing the flow of documentation for a worldwide network of investigators, both human and vampire, and their work against crimes against humanity, the environment, and every other life form that occupied it. I became investigator in charge of all investigations for the western half of the United States. It had led to a tremendous reduction in the amount of time Kai and Hunter had to spend with each other. If one of them wasn't called away to some far corner to work, they were sleeping through the daylight hours, literally dead to the world. Hunter looked at the clock radio by his bedside table. An adorably sleeping calico cat purred contentedly, curled up on the large black clock's wide and warm top, her tail covering the digits on its face. Oh, Annabelle. Hunter smiled softly and lifted the old girl's tail to read the digits. 3 a.m. already? Where the hell is he? No sooner had he thought about texting again, the security alarm at the front door began beeping, and Hunter heard the deadbolts begin to turn. He shut the laptop and tossed it to the foot of the bed, hopping to his feet and trotting out of the bedroom into the foyer of the house. Kai opened the front door to the ranch house and slid inside, a backpack slung over his shoulder and a silver suitcase being dragged behind him. He tapped a few keys on the security pad, shutting off the alarm. Finally, Hunter breathed, hands on hips. Kai gave a tired smile. Hello to you too, hun, he said, running a hand through his dark and disheveled hair. He looked at his partner. Hunter looked freshly showered, his lighter hair damp and slicked back. Wearing an old t-shirt obtained at an obscure British rock band's concert and flannel pajamas, Hunter looked annoyed, but still adorable. There was a delay in the airport, Kai said with a shrug. Hunter grunted. Fine, he said. I don't really care about that. I'm just glad to finally see you again. Hunter softened his expression and stepped towards Kai, pulling his suitcase to the side and helping him off with the backpack. He wrapped his arms around Kai in a loving embrace, and they shared a kiss. Hope you didn't use all the hot water, Kai said, because I am dying for a shower. I was going to wait for you, but Hunter began. He shrugged. It doesn't matter. I'm in the middle of writing my self-evaluation. Kai nodded as he picked up his bags and began walking towards the bedroom. I got mine sent off while we were waiting for the plane to refuel, he said. 29 pages. Hunter blanched as he followed Kai. That many? Damn, I barely have 2 pages and I thought I was finished. It's not the quantity so much as it is they want to know what you've excelled at and what you need more development on. They need the narrative of your investigation, sure, but it's like any other evaluation. Kai left the bags at the foot of the bed and walked to Hunter's bedside table, picking up the cat. She gave a sleepy trilling sound as she was picked up, then butted her head against Kai's chin. Hunter smiled softly at the cute picture. That's what I need to talk to you about. Hmm? It happened again. Kai's face fell. That's twice this week. And it was harder to break out of this time. Kai set the cat down so he could rub his temples. I think I need a bath instead, he said to himself. You can tell me about it there. I know what caused it this time, Hunter began, handing Kai a square wash towel. Kai dunked it in the water before wringing it out, folding it in half, and placing it over his eyes, sinking into the sudsy water. Albert accidentally insulted me. Kai sighed. Oh no, not Albert. Their friend Albert was a fellow order agent and the lover of Kai's ex-partner and current chief interrogator, Noah Frank. Albert was a caring and concerned person, but he had a tendency to speak before he thought, and often came off as cocky and insensitive. The previous night, Albert and Noah had come to Hunter and Kai's house to keep Hunter company during Kai's absence. The conversation had gone well enough until the cat accidentally knocked over an overfilled recycling bin in the kitchen, spilling emptied plastic bottles all over the floor. Geez, Hunter, Albert had chuckled. I'd get a maid or take out the trash once in a while, would you? Hunter bristled. He stared at Albert and locked eyes with him. The moment he saw Albert's irises, he couldn't stop himself. A hot sensation flushed over him, and Hunter's violet eyes began to widen and glow. Albert, frightened, tried to move, but couldn't. His eyes also began to glow, the color of the light, the same shade of purple as Hunter's. Hunter? Noah's voice was tense and guarded. He'd seen this before and knew what was about to happen. Hunter's living room began to disappear from their view. Everything around them, the walls, the ceiling above them, turned to a black void. The sofa Albert and Noah sat on was the only element of the room that remained. Do you know what it's like, being made to feel lazy and useless? Hunter's voice deepened, the anger and hurt inside him lashing out towards Albert. Every day, another snide comment about how pathetic you are. As he said the words, the void around them began to morph into the form of another room. It looked like a child's bedroom in a mobile home. Noah, the only one able to freely move his head, watched in awe as he saw the fake wood paneling of the mobile home walls materialized around him. As Hunter stood, the image of a small twin-sized mattress appeared at his side. There was no bed frame supporting the mattress. It just sat on the carpet. Laying there, cowering under a pillow, was a young boy. Do you know what it's like, Hunter continued, spending your whole childhood being told you're a worthless bastard? Hunter's voice became gravelly, almost slurred. As Albert and Noah looked on, the figure of a burly, slovenly-looking man burst in from some unseen door. Worthless bastard, he shouted. The voice, however, was being broadcast through Hunter's mouth, his eyes blazing purple. Hunter, try to stop this, Noah commanded. He rose from the sofa and tried to shake Hunter out of his trance. Do you hear me? Snap out of it. Albert whimpered, wriggling in his seat. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. I didn't mean to, Hunter repeated. The voice that came from him this time was that of the child, weeping and trembling on the floor before them all. I'm sorry, I just forgot to take out the trash. I'm sorry. I'm tired of you forgetting, boy. The man began undoing his belt as the scene continued being played out from Hunter's own memory, being performed like a television reenactment show in front of them, a virtual reality videotape. The sound of someone banging on an unseen door and a muffled female voice of protest could be heard swirling around them. Folding the belt into a single loop, buckle pointed outward, the gruff man whipped the strap cruelly against the backside of the child. It left an immediate mark on the child's skin. The man shouted with each strike, the voice entering the room via Hunter's mouth. Take out the damn trash! The impact of the lashings caused Hunter, the young boy, to scream in pain. Hunter, the vampire, screamed out as well. as did Albert, who not only felt the impact of the belt, but was getting the agonized yell of the child and adult forms of Hunter piercing his ears. That is enough! Noah pile-drived into Hunter, causing them to fall to the ground. Upon hitting the floor, the spell apparently broken, Hunter's eyes stopped glowing. The scene of the mobile home bedroom disappeared like a pane of glass that had been shattered by a flying baseball. The child form of Hunter, the mattress, and the visage of the drunken man vanished in a swirl of virtual dust. Hunter, Noah, and Albert looked around, the soft beige walls and modern decor of the ranch house now fully restored. Hunter groaned as if waking from a dream. "What, what happened?" "Noah, help me!" Albert winced. He was pressing his face into the sofa cushion. Noah scrambled across the floor to examine his boyfriend. Fighting an intense headache, Hunter gazed at them as Noah pulled up Albert's blood-stained shirt to find a 4-inch long laceration across his lower back. Oh my God. Beginning to realize what had just happened, Hunter started to stand up and approach his friends, but Noah stopped him by holding up his hand. Hunter took a half step backward, biting his lower lip. "Stay right there," Noah snapped. "Babe, come on. We're going to get you home." Guiding Albert up with both arms, Noah turned to Hunter. "We can't hold on to this much longer," he said. "You'd better talk to Kai about this when he gets home." And that brings us to now, Hunter sighed. He was holding back tears. I'm scared. What is this?" I pulled the wet towel off his face, letting it sink under the surface of the bathwater. "I wish I knew, Hunter. This is beyond anything I've ever known a vampire do before." Hunter learned early on that vampires can influence a human's behavior by locking eyes with them and giving them a psychic command. The type of influence or emotion from the vampire caused a colored glow to come from their eyes, intensifying as the connection got stronger. But that influence had only worked with humans, like Albert, and this purple light was entirely foreign to everyone. I had never seen or heard of it happening. The first time it happened to Hunter, he was fighting off the superior older vampire who had abducted Kai. Hunter had actually been able to locate a memory from within the other vampire's memory and recreate that memory to exact detail, just like he had done in recounting that abusive scene upon Albert. In New Mexico, the trauma of reliving the memory Hunter recreated cut down the other vampire's mental defenses and led to his ultimate defeat. But the bizarre nature of this development filled the pair with uncertainty. As Kai pulled the drain plug and stood up in the tub, grabbing a towel, Hunter had lingering thoughts of the beating he took as a child and something else his stepfather had told him. Eyes welling, he looked up at Kai. "Am I defective?" "Oh, hon." Kai tucked his towel securely around him and stepped out of the tub, pulling Hunter toward him and holding him tightly. "Certainly not. Don't let that man haunt you. You are a brilliant forensic profiler, and you are a skilled agent. And you are loved. You were loved by me, and you were loved by Noah and Albert." "Not after last night," Hunter cried. "Not after what I did to Albert. God, if you could have seen that wound on Albert's back." "I'll be seeing Noah tomorrow night," Kai sighed, wiping Hunter's tears away. "I'm sure he healed Albert right away. He'll be fine. We'll get all this sorted." "We're going to have to let the Order know soon," Hunter said. He was once again thinking how to leave all this out of his self-evaluation at work. "I know," Kai nodded. "Just a little bit longer, okay? I want to make sure they'll help us deal with it." "All right." As they entered the bedroom and Kai took a shirt from their expansive closet, Hunter climbed back into bed. Kai smiled as he watched him do so, only to frown as he remembered he had something to break to him. "I'm afraid I'll be leaving again tomorrow night." "What?" Hunter was crestfallen. "We've been planning this weekend now for weeks." "It can't be helped," huffed Kai. "We're still tying up the loose ends of this animal DNA investigation, and it looks like it's going to take me and Noah to San Francisco." "California," Hunter said briefly, taking his phone from the side table and pulling up the smart home app, turning off the interior lights. "The Sunshine State." "That's Florida," Kai corrected, "but it might as well be. Not that I'll be seeing the sun, of course. We'll be making a few interrogations with the help of the Ward 2 Bureau. He climbed in bed, pulling the covers tight. Fun, Hunter said flatly. Well, I hope you enjoy the trip. He turned to one side, fluffing his pillows roughly. Please don't be cross with me, Kai said softly. I know this sucks, but we knew we'd be doing more separate travel when we took these promotions. I know, Hunter said. I'm not mad, I'm just. He trailed off. There was still thinking about his evaluation. There were more details that he couldn't mention to the Order, and even more that he felt he couldn't even tell Kai. At least, not right now. I'm just tired and frustrated. We'll both feel better tomorrow, Kai said. He took Hunter's hand. I love you, Hunter. Love you too, Hunter mumbled, sleep already starting to take him. Good morning. Good morning, Kai said. They held hands as they slept. So that's chapter 1, and that explains to you a little bit more about the interesting new power that I gave Hunter. That was the focus of Mind's Eye, which was the original title of book 2 way back in the 2010s. Um, and that is the name of the power. Same basic concept. His eyes go purple, and he is able to give. He's able to not only read people's minds, but rebuild a visual representation in a virtual reality kind of context uh, around him and his target. Um, we're going to get to the audiobook segment from book 2, where we meet a character called Gibson. He's going to be a pretty important uh, part of the rest of the series from this point on. Um, I find it interesting to share this with you. Gibson was the name of the original big bad for book 1 way back, the original book 1. Gibson was a frustrated fellow agent who just decided to break away. He was part of. He had infiltrated the Order. He was a member of what I call the Crown, which is the big agency opposing the Order. But I think in rebuilding this series, I thought Gibson, as an Order or as a Crown member, was a lot more interesting, especially if, and as you'll find in book 2, he defects over to the Order. Um, and that kind of leads into this book 2 snippet that we're about to play for you. So please enjoy this segment from the audiobook version of West of Nowhere.
Both doors flew open, and before Hunter stood a man who appeared just a few years older than him, with impeccably trimmed, shoulder-length black hair and a dark blue velour bathrobe with a white G in the same style that had been on his wax seal. Gibson, Hunter said evenly, ignoring the robe's ostentatious nature, choosing to avoid Gibson's deliberate seductive glance and holding the rose between his fingers. What are you up to with these? My, Hunter, Gibson said, his low voice oozing sexuality. How delectable you look this late in the evening. Hunter rolled his eyes. Answer me, he said. Do come in, Gibson replied, smiling sweetly, gesturing with one arm. Make yourself comfortable. That's a joke, Hunter mumbled. Heard that. Gibson sung the words in a teasing fashion. I know, came the two-note reply. But, seriously, what is this? Hunter set the rose on the glass coffee table as he sat down at the bright white settee. Gibson took the sofa opposite of him. The first one was flattering, intriguing, I'll admit. The second one was concerning. But this one? At headquarters of all places. Don't you think people will start to talk? They'll think I'm sleeping with the enemy. Gibson smirked. It's not funny, Hunter snapped. Oh, pish. Gibson waved the rejection away with his well-manicured hand. He spoke in a high-class accent one might associate with rich snobbery. Of course it is. The last 2 times you've been here, you've behaved like a perfect gentleman, despite my assurances that you didn't have to. He winked. That right there. Hunter threw up his hands in exasperation. I've made it clear from the beginning, I'm not here to sleep with you. I wouldn't do that to Kai. I know, Gibson said, elongating the words as if he were sympathetic to Hunter's quandary. He reached over and raised Hunter's chin with his fingers. And believe me, it is precious. As Gibson stood up from the sofa and tied his hair back, Hunter blinked in stunned silence at his brazenness. So why do you keep on talking like that? I'm simply trying to be friendly with you, Gibson said, walking to a far room of the giant suite. That is what you wanted from this, isn't it? I said I wanted a friendly way of resolving this issue, Hunter retorted. You know something I can't have my superiors knowing, at least not right now. I need to know what you're going to do with that information. Food first, Gibson said. We're going to have a nice, civilized dinner, and then we can talk shop. Agreed? Hunter sighed, rubbing his eyes in frustration. Agreed. Splendid. Hugo! Hunter's eyes darted to the door of the bedroom where Gibson stood. Stumbling out of the bedroom was a very nearly nude young man of about 22 or 23, sleepy-eyed, locks of blonde hair in a nest of confusion. Absolutely not, Hunter began to protest. Come now, Gibson said, admonishing Hunter's objection and instructing his suite mate to make his way to the sofas in the same sentence. We don't deny our vampiric nature in this room. That one was directed at Hunter. There's nothing in your organization's little parchments that says feeding from a live source is out of bounds. As his stomach began to beg out for sustenance, Hunter scanned his brain for anything he could say to refute Gibson's words. There wasn't. Gibson was right. The Order had specific rules about vampires killing, not feeding. It was just Kai's preference that they stock their fridge with pre-siphoned blood, courtesy of his medical connections. Kai had taught Hunter how to feed out of necessity. A vampire that didn't know how to hunt was vulnerable in unexpected situations. They had often gone into some of the seedier areas in town, or set up situations where they can be confronted with a petty thug or some other career criminal. That pretty much eliminated any guilt either vampire had about live feeding. Karmic retribution, in a sense. But they hadn't really discussed how to respond to those who offered themselves freely. There are so many things Kai and I still haven't discussed, Hunter realized. He turned to Hugo, who had sat himself to Hunter's right, in the center of the sofa. Gibson sat down on the remaining seat, thinking swiftly. Hunter made himself think of peaceful rivers, serene landscapes, and other things that he sought when he needed to remain calm. A soft sensation washed over him, and his eyes began to emit an emerald green glow. Are you sure that this is all right with you? Hunter asked, making sure Hugo's gaze met his and cementing the connection. Oh yeah, the man said, dreamily. I'm his favorite pet. Hunter frowned and looked at Gibson for an explanation. Gibson put up his hands in gleeful defense. Term of endearment, I swear. Disengaging his psychic influence, Hunter's eyes changed back from an intense, light-filled green to his usual soft violet hue. This is not wrong to do, he told himself. I'm not breaking any rules here, and Hugo said it was all right. Hunter's fangs had already descended, The sensation would always take him by surprise. It reminded him of the time he had his wisdom teeth removed. He was awake for the procedure, completely numb, but he still felt when the robot-assisted extractor tool pulled the tooth out. It was that pop that jolted in his body. The same sensation when his fangs exposed caused him to yelp softly. Ah, so cute, Gibson marveled, letting his own fangs extend. They then both descended slowly on Hugo's neck, biting into him in unison.
And that was from the audiobook version of West of Nowhere, Book 2 in the Bloodbound series, which you can get at any of your favorite book retailers. Just head to my website, buychasemcp.com, for more details about each and every one of the 5 volumes in the series. You can also get the Pentalogy, all 5 of the novels in the current series, including the 5th one, which isn't out on its own until September 2nd. You can get the Pentalogy direct from my Ko-Fi. All right, welcome back. Thank you much for tuning in. Uh, Silas Darkwater, that's my husband. I'm going to be totally honest with you. Says that he loves that rendition of Gibson. Gav VA is a fantastic voice actor. He is at the very, very start of his career. He has a YouTube channel where he does a lot of ASMR videos, and he has his own uh, audio dramas going on. Starline is one of the biggest ones going right now. Mind Flayer. And when I asked him if he wanted to be part of Team Bloodbound, as I call it, to be the voice of the stories, he really jumped at it. I expected there to be I don't know who you are. Why would I want to do that? But he has been very enthusiastic about the project. And that's going to lead me into this announcement that I'm going to have in just a few minutes. But what I want to do before that is I want to get into book 3, alternate tracks. This is where I actually start really deviating from the original path of the original Bloodbound that I wrote in the 2010s. We start talking about alternate universes in this one as something that was not part of the um, original books. I had this concept floating in the back of my head: twins. What if twins were not supposed to be born in the same world? What if one was supposed to go into this world, the one that we are in, and the so-called twin was supposed to go to a different dimension altogether? I always found that a fascinating concept. And so I built an alternate world where that is the case, where our duplicates are supposed to be living their own lives in another world, in another dimension. And I'm going to read chapter 1 of Alternate Tracks 2 now, where start we start revealing that world. This is chapter 1 of Alternate Tracks. It's titled Love Will Tear Us Apart. Sly Taylor sat at one end of an oblong table, back to the crowd, the strobing lights above him pulsing, showering him in shades of blue, purple, pink, lime green, and yellow in rapid rotation. He appeared slightly uncomfortable sitting in a black mesh t-shirt, the air of the club passing through and making his skin tingle. He wasn't used to wearing such a garment, and he was bashfully aware that his nipples could be seen through the mesh. Remind me again why we're doing this? Kai leaned in, but still had to shout to be heard by the man sitting just to his left. Hunter Reeves, a sandy-haired lad who appeared to be in his mid to late 20s, was wearing a denim vest and black leather pants. He responded in equal volume, "The gang wanted to celebrate your work anniversary, but I'm not sure why they chose Electric Six." The gay club had actually been the place where Kai and Hunter first met. Hunter had been a patron of the night spot for some time, but on one particular night, in a state of extreme depression, he had planned to drown his sorrows and was being served drinks by that night's bartender, Kai. "It seemed fitting to me," said a soft British voice, made rougher by his volume. Mugen, in an even louder, shiny silk shirt with geometric designs embroidered around it, carried a tray of 5 opaque black cups. He sat the tray down in the center of the table. The night Hunter learned about us, it was here. Seems fittin' we make our toast here. But Kai was not actually a bartender by trade. He was a secret operative, working at the club that night on an undercover mission. So was Mugen, as it happened. Though Hunter wasn't paying much attention to his surroundings the last time he was at E6, Mugen had been paying attention to him. As the DJ, Mugen's station had allowed him to keep tabs on every patron who crossed the dance floor and the bar. At first, Mugen thought Hunter might have been connected to a nasty crime ring, but that wasn't the case. He had been an innocent who had the unfortunate bad timing to overhear his ex, who had gotten himself wound up in a situation that ultimately cost both their lives. Hunter was dead. So were Kai and Mugen, technically. They were all vampires, although Hunter hadn't been one that fateful night nearly 2 years ago. Hunter had a knack for profiling people and an eye for detail that attracted Kai in more ways than one. Kai had invited Hunter to work for their organization, the Order, but in the middle of Hunter's first big operation, he had been killed. Kai, who had fallen deeply in love with Hunter, had converted him into a vampire. So, Mugen, spill, why did you pick the club? Hunter asked, reaching for one of the cups. "Huh? Not yet." Mugen smacked the back of Hunter's hand. Hunter pulled back in surprise. He reckoned it was the first time Mugen had ever touched him, and it kind of stung. We still have to wait for Noah and Albert. But the blood's getting cold, Hunter complained. A thin man wearing a tailor-made suit in ivory white wrapped his arms around Hunter's face, cupping hands over Hunter's eyes. I have an idea how I could warm it back up, the man said sexily. Hunter shook his head from side to side, rolling his eyes, although no one could see it. Hello to you too, Gibson. Gibson removed his hands with a smirk. And aren't you a little overdressed for a gay bar? Hunter tossed over his shoulder upon noticing the bespoke clothing and black Italian loafers. Gibson took a step back and examined his attire, only making a cursory glance at the gyrating mass behind him, the bulk of the patrons shirtless. He did appear rather conspicuous by comparison. He flipped his sleek black ponytail behind his shoulder and shrugged. I set the bar high for myself. What can I say? With that, he leaned in and planted a rather long kiss on Hunter's lips. Ty shifted in his seat uncomfortably. Despite being committed partners, not to mention Hunter's vampire maker, Gibson had ingratiated himself in their lives in two unique ways. As a former major player in the Order's villainous counterpart called the Crown, Gibson had defected on the basis of wanting to be a better person. As a rather ancient vampire, Kai reasoned, Gibson had 1,100 years to go straight, but he also had to allow for the fact that Hunter had kindled something in Gibson to compel him to begin acting with more humanity than he once had. Gibson's defection had turned the Crown upside down. Within mere days of his changing sides, the Crown issued a directive to its operatives. Those who came across the three, Gibson, Kai, and Hunter, were instructed to attempt to kill them on sight, and it was fairly certain the Crown would try to organize a team tasked only with tracking them down and assassinating them. To complicate things more, Hunter had recently learned he was a Cambion. There was a demonic lineage within his body, although the roots of that lineage were unclear. Hunter was beginning to discover his abilities as a part demon were mixing with his heightened vampire senses and strength, and he was beginning to develop powers not even Gibson had been capable of in his lengthy history. Gibson was part incubus too, the only one, he had thought, until meeting Hunter, in whom he found a rare and special bond. They found themselves falling in love, but Kai had not forced Hunter to choose between himself or Gibson. Rather, he had allowed Hunter to explore his feelings, knowing Kai would never be truly abandoned by Hunter. Their blood bond was too strong to allow that. Still, it was a big sacrifice he felt to expose himself to the risk. Kai had come to tolerate Gibson, who sometimes had a flippant and foolhardy personality. He could be a trickster who tapped into his demonic tendencies to compel people to act rashly or indulgently, an untrustworthy trait. But Gibson had helped Hunter with his new abilities, even teleportation, and he had worked to protect the group on their last mission. I was forced to admit That made Gibson a solid agent. Still, it wasn't exactly pleasant to watch another man kiss his hunter. Their hunter, Kai had to remind himself. But as Gibson sat down and Hunter held the hand to either side of him, Kai felt Hunter's energy through their touch. It was strong enough to shy away any thought of jealousy or even mild irritation towards Gibson. At least for now, it just filled Kai with loving thoughts. Sorry we're late. Another pair of faces came into view and joined the table. Noah Frank, another vampire and another agent, slapped Mugen on the shoulder in greeting and waved hello to everyone else. An easy 6-footer with a wire-thin frame that matched his glasses, he was a picture of contrast standing next to his boyfriend, the shorter, stouter, more red-headed human, Albert. Al insisted on getting his hair cut. What do you think? Albert turned his head from side to side. His normally thick, curly red hair had been buzzed on all sides, leaving a mop-top kind of design that was tied into a nubby tail in the back. Gibson wrinkled his nose in pat judgment. The rest offered a waffling series of noises. Well, I like it, Albert shrugged. What you drinking? Mugen changed the subject quickly. Red-headed stranger, Albert said. Mugen shuffled off to order the spicy bourbon cocktail. Fitting, joked Noah. So anyway, I know we're celebrating Kai here. How many years has it been now? 70? 80? I stopped counting long ago, Kai said. October 11th, 1885, Albert laughed. As the order's chief record keeper, it was his responsibility to know these things. Almost 140 years. You're way off, my friend. Hunter whistled. He found it easy to forget the organization he worked for was so deeply rooted in history. About as easy as it was to forget that compared to Noah, Kai, and certainly Gibson, he was the baby vampire of the bunch. Well, the years all blend together after a while, Kai said with a small smile. Especially with the company you keep, he added, squeezing Hunter's hand. Mugen soon returned with Albert's cocktail. He then passed around the cups filled with warmed, medically checked blood to the rest of the group. All right, he said, enough suspense. Yes, we're here to celebrate Kai and his many years of faithful service, but I would humbly ask you to raise a glass to yours truly. I have two things to celebrate. Firstly, I now have my doctorate. That earned an immediate round of applause. Though Mugen had been considered the Swiss Army knife of order agents at the Dallas Ward headquarters, he could be relied upon to fill any task from sharpshooter to pilot. He had also been trained in nursing and metaphysical first aid, and was offered a job as the Bureau's chief of medicine upon completion of med school. And, he added, raising his own black cup, these drinks are all on the house, courtesy of E6's new owner, he grinned. I signed the papers last night. What? Hunter was genuinely surprised. He hadn't expected that announcement. Well, look at you. Kai reached across the table to shake Mugen's hand. The Brit also got more handshakes from Hunter, Noah, and Albert. This place. Gibson looked around as if he'd spotted a cockroach on the wall. It practically runs itself, Mugen said. I put my order salary into making the purchase, and the profits will keep me on a living wage and help pay off the med school bill in short order. Hunter knew that to be true. No one ever thinks about the salary one might receive as an employee of an underground policing organization bound to keep humanity from imploding under itself. But the day he checked his bank account and paid off 10 years' worth of student and credit card debt an hour later was testament. It paid well. The five men nursed their drinks. Gibson was impressed by Mugen's ambition, even if he was still looking down his nose at the general aesthetic. So, what are you going to do with it? You could really make something in this place with the right investments. I mean, have you thought about putting in a karaoke machine? It could get more of these Sabian people in here after hours. That'd be awesome, Hunter said, eyes sparkling with a sudden burst of energy. I always wanted to give karaoke a try, and knowing the owner, we could probably get it loaded with stuff I'd actually want to sing. The idea that Hunter would want to sing came as a surprise to Kai, and even more so when Hunter's face lit up at the suggestion. He'd never expressed any desire to sing to me. Mugen's eyes widened and his mouth opened, clearly intrigued by the idea. That's a fantastic idea, Gibson, Albert said. It could really draw in new foot traffic. Plus, we'd have something fun to do while we're hanging out here. Mugen smiled and nodded. Let's do it. I think this place could be a great first step towards making the place more popular and profitable. The group all cheered in agreement, raising their drinks to Mugen in celebration of his accomplishment. Then, turning to Kai, they raised their glasses once more and made a collective toast to his success and work anniversary. Kai smiled gratefully at the support from his fellow Order agents, even if the only thing he truly wanted was to stay close by Hunter's side forever. E6 opened out onto Cedar Springs Road, in the area lovingly described by residents and business owners as the Gayborhood. The weather had brought the first chill of the season, breaking a torturous stretch of Texas heat that seemed to have begun back in April. Hunter enjoyed feeling the cool breeze on his face as he, Kai, and Gibson strolled down the street toward the parking garage. So I thought we might just hang out at the flat this weekend, Gibson said to Hunter. We haven't really enjoyed the atmosphere of the place since I finished having it fitted out. Hang on a minute, protested Kai. I thought we agreed it was my turn to have a weekend with him. You had last weekend too. You had to bail out on last weekend because you said you had to oversee that mission in Juneau, Gibson countered, jabbing the button to the garage's elevator. You didn't see anything about swapping. Hunter sighed. Gentlemen, he said, I am not a 6-year-old in the middle of a custody battle. You two promised you wouldn't get into these arguments. The elevator chimed as the doors opened and the trio stepped inside, with Hunter standing between his two partners. Gibson hit the button for the top level. There was a moment of tense silence. I would like to catch up with Kyle tonight, Hunter said decidedly. I'll stay with him tonight, and I'll swing by your place tomorrow. Very well, Gibson said, voice polite yet crisp. All right then, Kyle said. Eventually it's not going to be possible to do equal time every week, Hunter said. We might as well disabuse ourselves of the notion right now. And I prefer not to be talked about in front of you two like I'm a library book waiting to be checked out. The bell of the elevator car chimed, and the men prepared to step out. You're right, Kai said. I'm sorry. Gibson's brows furrowed. He held up a hand. I hear something on the other side. Kai opened his mouth to reply, but a series of clicking sounds on the other side of the elevator doors caused him to stop in mid-word. With a sinking feeling, he reached for the door close button. It was too late. The doors began to open. They had only spread apart about an inch, and the three vampires could tell who was on the other side. Two black-cloaked figures, golden symbols of the crown embroidered on their balaclavas, each holding a freshly cocked .45 handgun equipped with silencer. Quick, Hunter, teleport! Gibson grabbed Hunter's hand. In reflex, Hunter grabbed Kai's hand. For Hunter and Gibson, teleporting was a new ability that came with a handicap. As half-demons, one could only teleport if the other was nearby to assist. The longer the distance, the more energy it took to complete the journey, and if they tried to take other people with them, it was also a substantial drain on their bodies. The upside was that teleportation was instantaneous once they got their minds aligned on a destination. Home, Hunter ordered as he focused on the mental command. He felt the air vibrate around him as he began to coax time and space to bend to his will. However, as he saw the henchmen pull the triggers on their guns, Hunter realized Gibson may have misinterpreted which home Hunter meant. Damn, he thought in that last split second. Maybe I should take us to the other realm. The other realm was uncharted territory, a second dimension the group had only recently discovered while on their last case. Traveling there meant a tremendous amount of focus and energy, and there was only one place they had seen in the other realm, and it was nowhere either of them wanted to go. No, Hunter thought, not the other realm. The word was the last thought on his mind when a bullet struck Hunter in his right shoulder. He could feel from its intense heat and immediate searing pain that it was no ordinary bullet. It contained silver pellets meant to disorient, poison, and paralyze a vampire. The teleportation command took effect, and a bubble of time enveloped the three vampires. In a blinding pulse of light, they were gone, leaving two very confused hitmen staring at an empty elevator car. Home, for Hunter, meant a quaint-looking ranch house just a few miles outside of the Dallas city limits. Inside a bedroom tucked at the back of the compound were lined dozens of pictures, landscapes mostly, but above the head of a plush king-sized bed was a large framed portrait of Kai and Hunter, taken during a trip to the mountains of Colorado after their first mission together. Sleeping silently at the foot of the bed was a large, elderly calico cat. It stretched and yawned, then shrieked and fled when she saw a giant bubble form just feet above her. There was a great flash of light, and then two bodies tumbled onto the mattress, bouncing like hard-boiled eggs on a tea towel. Hunter? Gibson scrambled to his knees, whirling his arms around Hunter and making sure he laid flat on the bed. Wincing in pain, Hunter held his hand over the wound on his shoulder. The silver pellets were preventing his vampire physiology from self-healing the hole. Black purple blood spread in every direction. Get a towel, he shouted through gritted teeth. Gibson dashed from the mattress and into the bathroom, yanking the towel hanging near the shower so hard he ripped the towel rack off its wall mount. It clattered to the floor, and Gibson jumped over it to make it back to Hunter quickly. Evermore, Hunter groaned, clamping the towel over his gunshot wound. In the fridge, med kit, under the sink. Hunter couldn't help but see the pained, worried expression on Gibson's face as the other vampire flew from one room to the next. He heard the refrigerator door open and shut, a cabinet door open and shut, and in mere seconds Gibson was back, holding a bottle of red liquid and a lunchbox-shaped container. There's a... Ah! Hunter was interrupted by a massive churning sensation in his gut. He felt like he may vomit. In the medkit, look for a packet marked Prussian blue. Crush what's inside and mix it into the Evermore. As Gibson knelt into the mattress to look for a silver packet of Prussian blue tablets, Hunter, sweating pink, blood-tinged sweat, slid off the bed. He felt as if he were fall-down drunk. The room swayed as he stepped forward. Though the bathroom was only 10 feet away, it looked in his field of vision as if it were 10 miles. Time lost all meaning. He saw himself, as it were, 10 minutes into the future, vomiting black tar-like liquid into a toilet. He blinked, and he was still walking to the bathroom. Another blink, and Gibson was feeding him from the bottle of Evermore, a blood substitute drink, mixed with the Prussian blue powder. Blink, vomit. Blink, sobbing into a blood-soaked towel. Blink, drink. Blink. When his panting subsided and the throbbing in his temples began to die down, Hunter felt like time was becoming a thing again. He found himself slumped over a toilet, the surrounding walls and shower wall absolutely splattered in black vomit. Gibson was sitting bow-legged behind Hunter, holding the towel against the wound with one hand, gripping Hunter's middle with the other. "Babe," he whispered, "are you... are you okay?" "I think so," Hunter moaned, lifting his head back. He motioned for Gibson to remove his hands, and Hunter peeled back the sopping wet towel. He saw the muscles in his shoulder pulsating, and three silver pellets erupted slowly out of a quickly shrinking hole, plinking on the floor beside a mass of other pellets and a decimated bullet slug. "I destroyed the bathroom," Hunter said, his voice hot and ragged. "Don't worry about that right now," Gibson said. "Let me help you up. Let's get you into bed." Gibson stood up and helped Hunter to his feet, then gingerly stepped around pools of blood, vomit, and shrapnel to guide Hunter to the bed. Gibson pulled off the comforter, which had gotten fairly soiled, and watched as Hunter climbed under the sheets like a castaway finding an oasis. "I'll get you a clean one," Gibson said softly. "I guess I'll wash this." He turned to take the comforter out of the room and stopped dead in his tracks. "What is that?" Gibson asked, a lump in his throat. He pointed in front of him. Hunter peered over the bed. "It's a cat," he said simply. "Her name is Annabelle." With a wary eye, Gibson inched his way out of the room as the calico stuck her nose up at the new person incredulously. Annabelle jumped awkwardly onto the bed. Always knowing when one of her owners was in emotional or physical distress, she was quick to offer headbutts and nuzzles and general positive energy. As Hunter stroked the cat's back and accepted its guttural purring, he rolled his head around his shoulders. He had not felt a pain like that since Crown cronies had abducted Kai early in their relationship. He had been injected with a silver solution that burned Kai's insides and probably made him as nauseous as Hunter had just felt. Kai's pain had been transmitted to Hunter via their blood and psychic bonds. It helped Hunter hone in on where Kai's captor had ultimately hid him. It was that memory that caused Hunter, finally, to ask the obvious question when Gibson came back from depositing the duvet into the washing machine. "Where the hell is Kai?" So that's a start for book three, alternate tracks. Now, you might have noticed that I have not mentioned anything about an audiobook for book three or any of the other books. We stopped after the second book um, because we had an exclusivity deal with ACX. That's the company that runs Audible through Amazon. Um, in that exclusivity deal, we couldn't provide the audiobook to anywhere beyond Audible and Apple Books. And I wanted to find a new platform, and I found one in Spotify. They have a subsidiary company that does audiobooks. They're going to publish the future audiobooks for us, which leads me to the big announcement. We want to begin production on book three's audiobook, alternate tracks. And to do that, we need your help. And that means it's time for a Kickstarter. To tell you more about it, here is a pre recorded version of me recorded earlier in the week. Hi, everyone. My name's Chase McPherson. I'm a self-published author from Huntsville, Alabama, and I'm raising money for production of an audiobook for the third volume in my vampire fiction series called Bloodbound. June 2025 marks the second anniversary of this book series, which currently spans 5 volumes. The first 4 in the series have won either silver or gold awards from the Literary Titan review staff. The 5th volume, called Reverberations, is due out on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Rakuten Kobo, and many other retailers in September. Reawakening and West of Nowhere have already had the audiobook treatment, thanks to the work of the wonderful and talented voice actor known as Gav VA. He puts a dark and smoky vibe to my tales of vampires and demons who work for an undercover vigilante network called The Order. Take a listen to a few passages from those novels.
Kai softly held up a hand. Look, I promise to tell you as much as I can, he said. But I need you to understand. You may be in danger, so please, answer me honestly for your own safety. Hunter gulped for air. Who are you? Kai maintained eye contact. He may not be able to influence this guy, he reasoned, but keeping eye contact with him could be a long ways toward gaining his trust. I'm an investigator, he said. I was investigating the man who you saw in the alley. The one who I just saw. Dead. Yes. Kai took a labored pause as he decided what to divulge. He had already been found guilty of his crime and had been sentenced to death. Hunter blinked, his head swimming. Don't you have to be in a courtroom to be sentenced to... Don't you have to be in a prison to be executed? Why was the DJ biting him? Kai bit his lip. I have to make some very quick decisions here. He paused again. The DJ is a vampire, as am I. Hunter's eyes once again bulged with shock. I'm losing it, he said. Or my drink was spiked, or something. Investigator. Vampire. Hunter took a deep, cleansing breath and focused on Mugen's hazel eyes. He cleared his mind of any other thoughts. Just a simple question. What are you afraid of, Mugen? The purple aura began to fill his eyes, and within seconds he was in. Hunter could feel fragments of thoughts, like small picture frames swirling around him. What are you afraid of? After a moment, an answer materialized in his head, fed by Mugen's psyche. What? Hunter said aloud. That can't be right. What's wrong? Ife asked. I see something, but he can't seriously be afraid of that. Ife furrowed a brow, then took a few steps to Mugen's chair. With his eyes glowing purple, caught in Hunter's gaze, she whispered in his ear. Mugen craned his neck to whisper a reply. I see, she said, then went back to her position at the side of the room. Proceed, Ife said reassuringly. Okay, Hunter said. He narrowed his eyes as he imagined how he wanted the scenario to play out, All 4 people in the exam room could see a void of black envelop the boundaries of the room as Hunter began creating another setting entirely. Marvelous, Ife breathed as she looked around. Mugen let out a choked cry as he saw the blackness surrounding him, unsure of what would come next.
Audiobooks 1 and 2 are currently available on Audible and Apple Books only. Starting with Book 3, Alternate Tracks, we're expanding our reach. We're partnering with Spotify and InAudio to bring the Bloodbound story to Google Play, InstaRead, Libro.fm, Chirp, and of course, Spotify audiobooks. Money raised from this Kickstarter will be split 50-50 between myself, the author, and Gav VA, the narrator. In return, those who pledge at least $10 can choose to get a redemption code for the Spotify version of the finished audiobook once it's published. At higher tiers, you can opt to get DRM-free copies of all 3 audiobooks to add to your personal collection. I hope you'll join us on this exciting chapter in the Bloodbound saga and pledge to our Kickstarter. Thanks in advance for being part of Team Bloodbound. All right, so that Kickstarter is live as of this moment. We are asking for $1,000. We just need 100 people to pledge at the $10 level, and we're fully funded. We'll get that into production. Now, a few things to note. This is a 50-50 deal between me and Gav VA. I am always a proponent of paying your artists and your creators. He will get literally 50% of whatever we earn on this. I will take the hit on the transaction fees and the Kickstarter processing fees. I'll take the lower portion of whatever comes out after that. He will get the full 50%. Um, so if we get beyond 1,000, all the better. But 1,000 will be 500 to him, 500 to me minus the processing fees. So that's going to be how that works. Um, Coming up in a little bit, we are going to finish up. I'll read the first chapters of books 4 and 5 to you, and you can. We'll also talk about the reviews that we've gotten. Literary Titan is the name of the website that has reviewed each and every one of the books for us. They've been pretty damn positive, and we also have one from the Book Life Prize. We have a brand new review for book 5 that's coming out in September. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take a quick break so I can refresh myself, take a drink, stretch a little bit. Um, so we'll take a quick break. In the meantime, buy chasemcp.com, get information about all the books. There's a link to the Kickstarter, and there will also be a link, a QR code coming up here on the screen. We will be back in just a few minutes. friendos. I am back, fully refreshed, kind of, sort of refreshed. I haven't had breakfast or lunch yet. I'm just running off of a Gatorade Zero. So if if I seem a bit out of it, that's probably why. I also noticed in doing that reading of book three, there is a continuity error that I need to fix. So once I get done with all of my stuff today, I'm going to fix that and upload a fixed version of book three. And that's kind of the beauty of being a self-published author. I bought a book, a widely published book, this past week, and I've been reading it, and I've noticed so many printing errors, typos, wrong versions of a word, wrong spellings, superfluous punctuation, and this is published by a big publishing house. It's going to take forever and a day for someone to point out those errors, fix those errors, and republish the book. Whereas here, as a self-pubbed author, you know, I want to have everything letter perfect, but you know, it's this just isn't that kind of world. Um, but if I find an error, I can fix it and republish within a matter of minutes, maybe an hour at worst. Also, something fun that I just learned during that break, I was talking with my husband, Tyler, um, who informed me that he shared the Kickstarter link with some of his Discord buddies, and one of them, who is in France, uh, is aware of my books through a friend who had purchased earlier, and that still blows my mind. I'm um, Thank you, by the way, person in France. I was not given your name, and thank you to France book purchaser's friend who is going to. It sounds like going to help fund the Kickstarter. Um, I'm this world is giant and so small all at the same time. It just we have about 20 minutes or so left. I'm probably going to run a little bit over 2 o'clock, but I want to get the last two books covered. Book four is called Extreme Temperatures. I put this out a little, yes, shout out to Emily. Thank you, Tyler. Shout out to Emily. Thank you so much for your support and your help. Thank you to everybody, by the way, who has purchased, um, reposted, shared, um, over the past 2 years. That that's part of why I keep doing this. Is we all want to be seen. I think that's a given. All of us as creators just want our little piece of real estate territory. We just want to be noticed. And every purchase, every reshare, every comment that I get is just an affirmation that, you know, I need to keep going. Book four, Extreme Temperatures. This is where we're past the three book slump. And this is also where we start to get a little bit darker in terms of territory, and we really start talking about the mental health aspect of the story. We're not going to get that in this first chapter, but you're going to see a definite personality change in Hunter, and um, that is a red flag for some people suffering with mental illness, depression, etc., bipolar disorder. Personality changes, especially radical ones, can be a sign that something is brewing. If you see that in someone, I would advise you try to get them to talk, either to yourself or to a mental health professional. Um, Silence is a symptom, and it's a pretty dangerous symptom in mental illness. And we just need to talk these things out. We need to talk. We need to be heard. Um, but with that, let's get into Chapter 1 of Book 4. The book is called Extreme Temperatures. Chapter 1 is titled Running Hot. Slicers looked out of place in every sense of the word. For starters, the sign spelling out the name of the dive bar was a hodgepodge. Each letter came from one of the signs that had hung over the threshold during other business's brief time in operation at that location. The desired letter had been sheared, torn, or indeed sliced off, then glued, cemented, or soldered to the next. The finished sign, which looked like it came from a ransom note you'd see in the movies, was riveted to the corrugated metal walls of the building. The building, a half-moon shaped forest green Quonset hut, was a disused military barracks, the only building left from a closed base. It stood in stark contrast from the shopping center on the opposite side of the interstate. The bar was isolated, cut off from the main artery of interstate highway traffic, serviced only by a gravelly side road, and surrounded by pastures and crop fields. Slicer's parking lot was also markedly different, again, also paved with loose gravel and guardrails made out of treated logs, and there was not a sedan or family-packed van to be found. There were, however, plenty of motorcycles, dozens of them. Shiny, buffed Harleys, dust-covered Kawasaki's, and more than a few Hondas in various conditions. Excuse me. Live. Lights from the lamps surrounding the building danced around chrome. And within this lot full of hogs, there was one vehicle that itself stood out from the rest. A three-wheeled Can-Am, plastic armor coated in day-glow green with accents of construction site orange. It was parked around the corner from the rest of the bikes, against an otherwise desolate alleyway leading to the rear pasture. A pair of men were pointing at the trike, kicking its tires and sniggering. One of them walked around to the rear tire. The license plate above it read HUNTR. The sound of a zipper being undone was masked by the pair of men hooting in glee, while a stream of yellow liquid began to splatter against the plate. Meanwhile, inside the metallic shell of the building, your typical biker bar activities: drinking, shouting, loud music, pool playing. There were a few women inside, including one tending bar, but the place was decidedly testosterone-filled. As with everything else about its exterior, at least one thing inside the bar was out of place for the setting: the tattoo chair in the back room, only half concealed by a pool table and the four men shooting a game around it. Two things were out of place, actually, if you counted the man being tattooed on the chair. Whereas most of the patrons of the bar were obviously of a certain breed, with scraggly beards, scratched and scuffed leather vests, and blue denim jeans, the young man in the chair was clean-shaven with sandy blonde hair and was wearing tan cargo pants with a fabric belt tied around his waist. His left arm was propped up on the leather rest, while the tattoo artist continued filling in a tribal design in rusty red ink. The pattern was being snaked around the shoulder from its starting point at the man's left pectoral muscle. The artist lifted his head to swipe a lock of salt and pepper hair behind his ear. He had a thick stubble around his chin and steely gunmetal blue eyes that took an examination of his work thus far. "All right," he said. "I guess I was wrong. This is going to be a 5-draw job instead of 4. I need another needle. Can you behave yourself while I get it, Hunter?" "Told you it'd be 5, smirked Hunter, flexing his arm. Only a person watching very closely would notice the marks caused by the tattoo needle's piercing of his skin were healing, fully, by the second. "Go on, get your supplies. I'll be here." The tattoo artist removed his black latex gloves, lifted himself off his stool, and headed for a room marked office. Before entering, he snapped his fingers in Hunter's direction, and the young man looked his way. Pointing to his lips, the artist mouthed the word, "Behave." Hunter replied with a playfully sarcastic face and a casual flip of his left hand's middle finger. Leaning back in the chair, Hunter sighed and waited, looking out upon the back room, and watched the quad of pool players finish up their game, only to insert more quarters to call back the set of balls. Among the sounds of inane chatter, billiard balls clinking and being racked, Hunter also noticed a pair of voices from the front of the house, loud, obnoxious voices. One was very talkative, while the other seemed overwhelmed by laughter. "Whose is it? Yours?" "Fuck off," came the reply. A feral snort punctuated the drunken laugh. This voice was different from the first, but Hunter could tell he was the first voice's buddy. "How about you? You own that pussy bike outside?" Another drunken, horse-like snort. "The hell are you talking about? Get out of here." Hunter rolled his eyes. Another drunk asshole, he thought to himself. Well, that's all you can get. Two men stumbled into the back room. One was short and squat, the other about a head taller and muscular. "What about it?" The muscular one scanned an obviously drunken eye around the room. "Who owns that so-called motorcycle outside? What fucking poser was so ashamed of it they parked it round back?" The fat one let out a hyena-like snicker. Hunter lifted himself out of the reclined position of the chair and smiled. "You mean the pussy bike?" The musclehead was clearly soused, if not also high. There were wet stains on his shirt that indicated he'd had trouble keeping his last drink fully in his mouth. "Yeah, that's right," he sneered. "Well, that'd be mine," Hunter said, his voice not displaying an ounce of fear or hesitation. "Why? You want to take a ride with me?" There were muted snickers from the pool players. Hunter could feel the energy coming off everyone around. He was getting off on having an audience, but his next move, when he made it, had to be in private. Hunter hopped off the tattoo bench. He was about 3 inches shorter than the roughneck who was mouthing off to him. "Boy, I'll fuck you up," the meathead growled. He cracked his knuckles, both hands balling into fists. His words were accentuated by his friend's hysterical laughter. Tempting, but I'm spoken for," Hunter cracked, which made the smaller of the pair belt out in laughter again. With a cross expression, the taller of the two smacked an arm to shut his pal up. "What'd you say, you little fag boy?" "I said, if we're going to dance, we're going to take it over to my ballroom." Hunter began walking backwards towards the exit. He kicked a leather-booted foot against the door, sending it sailing open. He bowed courteously and gestured inside with a swoop of his hand. "Won't you join me, Peaches?" There were surprised oohs, hoots, and cackles from the bikers watching the exchange, and as the pair began following Hunter outside, the office door opened, and the tattoo artist's arm grabbed for the shorter of the two. He yanked the man into the office, seemingly going unnoticed by Hunter or his dance partner. "Whoa," the tattooer said as he slammed the office door closed, holding up an arm and blocking a few of the bar patrons who approached the exit. "You know the rules. Outdoor fights are invite only." Hunter stepped out into the night, the cool air brushing against his bare chest like a whispered invitation. The gravel crunched beneath his boots as he moved toward the open field, his heightened senses already picking up the biker's erratic heartbeat. He smirked to himself, his tongue grazing the sharp points of his fangs, which were eagerly waiting to pop out fully. The scent of sweat and stale beer wafted from the men stumbling behind him. This would be quick. It always was. "Let's do this," the muscled biker said once he and Hunter made their way to the edge of the pasture behind the bar, thumbing his nose and getting into a boxer stance. This time it was Hunter who cracked a laugh. "What's so fucking funny?" growled the man. "What is this, Chicago in the 20s? Hunter folded his arms against his bare chest. "If you're gonna hit me, fucking hit me, sweet pea. Look, I'll even let you throw the first punch." Without a moment's hesitation, a closed fist socked Hunter square in the jaw, throwing his head violently backwards. A few drops of blood splattered on the gravel below. His head still thrown back, Hunter chuckled, then made a spitting sound. Two teeth clattered to the ground, along with a small pool of spittle and blood. Hunter was still laughing, even as his assailant cracked his neck again and began bobbing back and forth, waiting for a counterpunch. "Oh, now this isn't fair," Hunter said, his tone still playful, even mirthful. The blood seeping from his mouth dribbled down like a disturbed clown who opted for a bright red frowning face instead of a smile. "Figured a pussy boy like you wouldn't like a real fight," the drunken biker said. "Oh, I like a fight." Hunter's voice went suddenly deeper, more menacing. As he pulled his head forward, he smiled wide, revealing the gaps in his teeth. The holes were filling in with new teeth, growing and lengthening in seconds, but they didn't stop at the same length as his other teeth. They were forming points and descending, becoming fangs. The man in front of Hunter recoiled. "What the—" "I meant this isn't fair for you." As Hunter spoke, his eyes began to glow as red as embers. "Now remind me, who's gonna fuck who up?" "Shit." Thoroughly startled, the man began to scramble backwards, then turned tail and made a full-on escape toward the wheat field behind the bar. He quickly disappeared among the crops. Hunter took off running, his boots crunching against the gravel before he plunged into the wheat field. The night swallowed him and his prey whole, the air thick with the scent of soil and ripe grain. The biker's labored breaths and frantic footfalls echoed in Hunter's hyper-aware mind, each sound amplifying his hunger. The man gasped, his voice catching in his throat as he stumbled over a root, barely catching himself. The wheat whipped against his face, leaving faint red lines on his exposed skin. Every step seemed heavier, as though the field itself conspired to slow him down. Hunter darted through the stalks like a wraith, silent and deadly. His lips parted in a grin that revealed the growing sharpness of his fangs. When he finally closed the gap, he didn't hesitate. With a predator's grace, he lunged. The force of his tackle drove the biker to the ground, the man's face slamming into the dirt with a muffled cry. Hunter's fingers clamped around his shoulders, pinning him with unnatural strength. "No, please," the biker began, but his voice cut off in a strangled scream as Hunter wrenched his head to the side, exposing the pulsing vein of his neck. The first bite was electric. Hot, coppery blood surged into Hunter's mouth, and his entire body shuddered with a rush of vitality. He growled loud and guttural, his grip tightening as the biker thrashed beneath him. The man's screams turned to wet, choking sobs. His hands clawed at the ground, pulling up handfuls of wheat and dirt in a desperate attempt to escape. His heart raced in wild panic, each beat fueling Hunter's feast. "I could kill you," Hunter thought. "This feels so damn good. I wonder what it would feel like to kill you just because I know I can." "By the way," he said aloud as he took a quick break from drinking the biker's blood, "don't think I couldn't hear you pissing on my bike. You're gonna clean it up. With your tongue." He barely had time to process the fact that there was a sound akin to a canine growling coming rapidly from behind him before Hunter was tackled, the force of 4 paws jump-kicking off his sides and sending him rolling to the ground. The biker gasped and groaned in pain, fumbling forward on his hands and knees. Hunter, dazed, rolled onto his back to find a gray and black coyote in front of him, panting and baring its fangs. Then, as it began to stand on its hind legs, the coyote began to grow in size, stretching, as fur began to disappear, replaced by a human form. As it fully transformed, Hunter sat up and sighed. "Slicer, you're such a spoil sport. You know it's been 3 days since I last fed." "Yeah," Slicer said, wiping his lock of hair back behind his ear. "Well, I told you to behave yourself. Glad to see you lasted a full 30 seconds this time." "The fuck?" The biker's voice was haggard and shaken. He was almost crab-walking along the ground, holding one hand against his bleeding neck. Hunter flew forward, pinning the biker to the ground. His eyes, now glowing an amber-yellow hue, bored into the biker as he focused his attention. "Playtime's over, sugar," he whispered into the biker's ear with a disturbed smile of glee. "Time for you to run along home." Hunter stood up, towering over the man. As if in a hypnotic trance, the man stood up. His eyes were also glowing yellow. "Run along home," he echoed, almost in a whisper. "Oh, almost forgot." Licking his thumb, Hunter pierced the skin with a fang, a droplet of blood forming. He gave it a quick smear over the bite marks on his victim's neck. The wounds zipped themselves closed in seconds. "Scoot," he said, pushing the man in the chest. The man, stupefied, staggered his way out of the wheat field, back towards the bar. "All right, you," Slicer said, "back inside. We gotta finish up your tat, then I'm sending you back home. You know my rule. Once you get in a fight, you're done for the night." Yeah. Slicer guided Hunter back out of the field. As they walked back toward the bar's back door, Slicer said, "By the way, I can smell that guy's piss real strong coming off your spider. Might want to hose that off. If you'd left me with him like I wanted, I was gonna have that taken care of." That's not the full chapter, but that's a good ending point because I do want to wrap this up. I want to talk a little bit about reviews because there is a brand new review for book 5 that we need to get to. Before that, heading to my own website real quick so I can read some of the prior reviews. All 5 books have won Literary Titan awards. Books 1, 4, and now 5 have 5-star reviews. 1 and 4 have gold awards from Literary Titan. Books 2 and 3 have silver awards, and I just want to read a bit of what they have to say. For book 1, Literary Titan says, "Reawakening is a thrilling blend of espionage, emotional depth, and fresh vampire lore. Hunter's journey from human to reluctant spy vampire is packed with action, heart, and second chances, a must read for urban fantasy fans. I submitted book 2 for consideration for the Book Life Prize. Book Life is a major literary website, clearinghouse, review site. It did not win an award, but I did get a review of the book, and they said that McPherson's style awakens old world vampire stories and entwines them with mystery thriller overtones, making the resultant narrative decidedly unique, which I very much appreciate. Literary Titan also compares West of Nowhere to the Dresden Files or the Southern Vampire Mysteries, True Blood's book series, if you didn't know, but with more edge and less camp, which is exactly what I was trying to go for. It's fast, it's dark, and it leaves you with just enough unease to keep the lights on at night. They also said that it would absolutely recommend alternate tracks. It's perfect for fans of urban fantasy who are tired of the same old brooding loner vampire tropes. If you like queer romance, secret organizations, chaotic polycules, and lots of sarcastic flirting, mixed with visceral horror, this is your book. It's not a subtle book, but it's a fun one. Bold, sexy, weird, and somehow heartfelt. And then book 4, Extreme Temperatures, is a wild and heartfelt ride. It's angry, it's tender, it's fierce, and it's not interested in sugarcoating the path to healing. This is a book for readers who like their vampires with more bite than brooding, who crave supernatural drama that digs into the heart as much as it tears through flesh. That is fantastic. And now that brings me to the newest review for Bloodbound 5, Reverberations. Again, this comes out September 2nd, or if you want to read it now, it is included in the Pentalogy. The Pentalogy is all 5 books in one ebook file. Here's the review as it will be published. This has not been published by Literary Titan yet, but it will be in the coming weeks. Bloodbound Reverberations is an emotionally charged blend of supernatural intrigue and found family drama. Set across both our world and a richly imagined other realm, the story follows Hunter Reeves, a vampire investigator entangled in a deadly bureaucratic countdown, to prove the innocence of his lover Kai with a thing called Safe Harbor. With the help of his lovers Kai and Gibson, each complex in their own right, Hunter faces internal demons, literal monsters, and the tangled politics of a secretive organization known as the Order. At the heart of it all lies a powerful question: what makes us lose ourselves, and how far will we go to hold on? I was genuinely pulled into this book's rhythm. Chase McPherson's writing is lush without being bloated, cinematic, yet deeply personal. The dialogue sings. It's sharp, fast, and carries real emotional weight. The characters feel lived in, like old friends with bad habits. Hunter's struggle with his siphonic nature, the way he feeds on energy, not just blood, mirrors so much of what it means to crave validation, success, and love. The relationship between Hunter, Kai, and Gibson is tender, prickly, and sometimes painfully raw. I bought into them completely. McPherson doesn't shy away from messiness, and thank God for that. The plot barrels ahead with twists and turns, alternate selves, ancient crimes, venom-fueled conspiracies, but I sometimes found myself missing the quiet. That said, when the book does pause, it delivers real gut punches. A whispered plea for comfort, a shared meal soaked in sunlight, a song born from longing. It's those little beats that made me care deeply about these people and their strange, dangerous lives. And I have to say the flashbacks to 1901 were chilling. That sequence alone could have been a novella. I'll make a comment on that in just a second. Bloodbound Reverberations is a weird, wild, and heartfelt ride. It's part supernatural thriller, part slow burn romance, part rock band fever dream, and somehow it all works. If you like stories with found families, alternate realities, and just enough bite, pun intended, this one's for you. Fans of the Umbrella Academy, Buffy, or queer spec fiction will feel right at home. Thank you, Thomas Anderson from Literary Titan, for writing that. It is interesting that he said the flashbacks could have been a novella. They were. What I did for books 4 and 5 is you're going to get 2 chapters set in the present, and then you're going to get a chapter set in early 1900s Texas, where we see Kai's first major investigation with the Order as a vampire agent. It is it was originally the third volume of the original series called The Railroad Ripper, and I decided as I was writing books 4 and 5 that Hunter's mental health storyline kind of parallels what I had originally written for Kai in Railroad Ripper. So I decided to actually fuse those two stories together. And so books 4 and 5 do this pattern: 2 chapters in the present, 1 chapter exploring Kai's background. And the result, I think, is a very satisfying way to fill you in more on Kai's backstory and showing you, the reader, that he and Hunter have a lot more in common than they might actually think together. I'm going to read a chapter 1 of book 5 real quick, then we're going to close this up talking about music. So, real quick, book 5, Stuck in My Head. Hunter Reeves sat across from his therapist, arms crossed, his foot bouncing in a steady rhythm against the office floor. The room smelled of sandalwood and old books, a grounding scent that his therapist had chosen intentionally. He knew it, and she knew he knew it, but she didn't bring it up. That was the point of therapy, he figured. Some things were meant to be quiet acknowledgments, not grand revelations. You've been here 5.5 months, she said, leaning back in her chair, which means safe harbor is nearly up. Hunter let out a slow, yet unnecessary exhale. Yeah, I know. Do you? She pressed. Because last week you told me you were handling it, and I get the feeling that handling it really means actively avoiding it. Hunter smirked. Sounds like me. The therapist sighed, but there was no real frustration in it. You have options, Hunter, but ignoring the countdown isn't one of them. Hunter shifted uncomfortably. His body felt restless, the same way it always did before a show. The energy never fully dissipated, not even when he let loose during Hunter Reeves and the Daywalkers' performances. He was learning how to use his abilities more fluidly, shifting his facial features at will, altering his form into something that wavered between solid and liquid, blending seamlessly into the stage spectacle. His alternate realm double, Hunter 2, leader of the band, had encouraged it. Leverage is what makes you special, he had said, grinning before heading into yet another sold-out show. But there was another side to that. Hunter had begun to notice the way he felt after shows, not just exhausted, but buzzing with a different kind of energy, the energy he was literally feeding on. Bleeding the emotions from an audience was one thing, but what if he craved more? What if he stopped caring where the energy came from? You're worried about something else, his therapist noted, watching his shifting expression, not just safe harbor. Hunter hesitated. I think I'm... He stopped, calculating his words. I think I like it too much. The siphoning. Her expression didn't shift. She didn't look alarmed or judgmental. Go on. When I'm performing, I feel the energy pouring into me. It's like this charge, like I'm feeding off them. It's different from blood. It's cleaner, it's purer, and I don't know if I should be enjoying it this much. His therapist considered him for a long moment. Enjoying something doesn't inherently make it bad, Hunter. The question is, do you feel like it's controlling you? Hunter frowned. That was the part he wasn't sure about. I don't know, he admitted. Probably not, but I'm starting to worry about the next time. What if I push it further? Is it possible you're not worried about it at all? That you're using it to ignore the clock and safe harbor? I'm not ignoring it, he muttered. I just don't see the point in panicking until we have to. Panic? No. Prepare? Yes. You, Kai and Gibson, are living in the other realm like you're building lives here. But what happens when the safe harbor deadline hits? Hunter pressed his lips together as his thoughts meandered to his two lovers, Kai and Gibson. They were all in this mess together, but each had their own way of dealing with it. Kai had found something resembling peace, running Sonata, his very own massage parlor, throwing himself into holistic therapy as if it could undo a century of carnage and remove the impending threat of execution. Gibson, on the other hand, had found himself in a deeply ironic twist of fate, working in a supermarket deli. A far cry from his centuries of wealth and power, and judging from his daily grumbling, he was not adapting well. At least that part was funny. Hunter recalled Gibson's dramatic sigh just the other day. Hunter and Kai had come up to the fried chicken counter as Gibson was wrapping up his shift. A small disagreement over dinner plans mushroomed into a debate over the ticking time clock they all faced. Taking off his apron and chef's hat, Gibson threw up his hands and hissed, "Please, let's not fight near the lard." Hunter and Kai dissolved into giggles. It took Gibson a few moments to figure out what the laughter was about. The humor was fleeting, though. No matter how much they built here, the reality was closing in. Later that night, Hunter sat in the dim backstage area of Neptune's, tuning a guitar he didn't even plan to play. Hunter, too, was sitting nearby, nursing a drink and watching him with amusement. "You know, if you're looking for an outlet," Hunter 2 mused, "I could use a song." Hunter stopped, eyebrow arching. "A song?" Hunter 2 shrugged, all nonchalance. "Call it an act of penance, since you keep calling me a thief." Hunter snorted. "That's because you are a thief. Genius takes inspiration from wherever it can. That's what thieves say, or at least plagiarists." Hunter 2 smirked. "So, what'll it be? Gonna challenge me to write something original?" Hunter leaned back, arms crossed. "Yeah, actually, I am." Hunter 2's expression flickered for half a second. Surprise, maybe, but he recovered fast. "All right, what do you want it to be about?" Hunter hesitated. He thought about Kai, about Gibson, about how much of their lives right now felt uncertain. He thought about his own struggles, his siphonic nature, his fear of losing himself to it. He swallowed. Something real. Hunter 2 tilted his head, considering, "You sure you want me writing something real? Most of my stuff is lifted from your world." "That's the point," Hunter said, holding his gaze. "Prove to me you can do it." Hunter 2 watched him for a moment before tipping his drink back. "All right," he said, standing, "but don't expect anything fast. Inspiration takes time." And we're going to stop it there, because I do need to wrap this up. It's been fun reading this stuff to all of you for celebrating 2 years of this novel series that has now spanned 5 novels. It's definitely grown from what I originally intended to. I'm going to close out with some music here. This will probably earn me a copyright thing, but who cares? This song has been with me for the entirety of the Bloodbound journey. Thanks again to Tyler, my love, for bringing it to my attention back when we were dating. Thank you, Mark, by the way, for buying the Pentalogy. I hope you enjoy it. Please give a review when you're done with it. You have a wonderful week as well. Tyler got me onto this group called Poets of the Fall back when we were dating, and this particular song of theirs has stuck with me. It feels like if Bloodbound were a TV show, if it were a series, this would absolutely be the theme song to it. Also, if you go to my website, bychasemcp.com, which I'm loading up here in just a second, you can find links to all of the playlists that I've built. Every book has a playlist connected to it. Songs that have fed my inspiration for writing and the storyline for each book. This song by Poets of the Fall I consider to be the theme song to the entire series. That's what we're going to wrap up on. Again, thank you all so much for being here with me for this 2 years. Hope we do it a lot longer. I hope there's a 6th book being written right now, so I hope you will continue to join me on this journey. Thank you once again. Here's Poets of the Fall to close us out.
The question questions burning on. Where is it coming from? No one seems to know the monster born. It's a bad trip on a sinking ship where no one seems responsible. Scapegoat to rock the boat, yeah, we need someone expendable. Volunteers to face the fears. Can we be sensible and find a way to break the fall? Find out the cure for all. Is there a hero somewhere? Someone who appears and saves the day. Someone who holds out a hand and turns back time. Is there a hero somewhere? Someone who will never walk away. Who doesn't turn a blind eye to a crime. They're looking up the sun. They have their chosen one. You know this time they'll make a play along. They're taken to the arms, the fathers and their sons, with nowhere left to run. It's a bad trip on a sinking ship where no one seems responsible. Scapegoat to rock the boat, yeah, we need someone expendable. Volunteers to face the fears. Can we be sensible and find a way to break the fall? Find out the cure for all. Is there a hero somewhere? Someone who appears and saves the day. Someone who holds out a hand and turns back time. Is there a hero somewhere? Someone who will never walk away. Who doesn't turn a blind eye to a crime. And in the emptiness, there's a solution. Just look within yourself.